just can't seem to find a reason to believe that I can break free. Cause you see, I have been down for so long, feel like all hope is gone. But as I lift my hands, I understand that I should praise you through my circumstance. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chains, now I can lift my hands. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. Just wanna praise you. Just wanna praise you. Broke the chains, now I can lift my hand. I'm gonna praise you. Everything that could go wrong.
Thank y'all so much, everybody, for being here and being a part of our webinar. I would like to welcome you to our public release of our Literacy is Freedom report. We're so excited that we have over 62 people registered for this webinar and just excited to hear the work of the parents from Parent Shield Fort Worth that we did over this past summer. So thank you guys very much for taking the time to be a part of this. My name is Trinace Dorsey Hollins. I am the leader of this movement. So just tell you a little bit about Parent Shield Fort Worth. Parent Shield Fort Worth, we are a movement that works day in and day night to ensure that educational excellence is the reality for every child in Fort Worth. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary and we have made some life-changing relationships, and we are excited about working towards changing the trajectory of not only our community, but especially of our children that have been overserved for many generations.
In for Fort Worth ISD, and what parents are seeing not making them very happy.
Now there's a plan for making some changes for the future. Our Aaron Jones tonight shows you exactly what that could look like.
Trinace Dorsey Hollins' organization, Parent Shield Fort Worth, represents hundreds of parents focused on improving education for their children.
Like, our boots are on the ground. We're out there knocking on doors, talking to parents.
Tonight, she's speaking on their behalf, reacting to the district's latest Texas Academic Performance Report, which looks at student performance.
I was disgusted. Honestly, I was disgusted. Like I stated, the goals are low, the expectation is low, but the implementation is even lower.
For the 2021-2022 school year, it shows attendance rates for the district at 92.8%, compared to 95% for the state. For grades 7 and 8, the annual dropout rate is at 2.2% for the district compared to 0.9% for the state. For grades 9 through 12, 4.3% for the district compared to 2.4% for the state. Only 66.4% of graduates ready for college, career, or military compared to 76.9% for the state.
The data just presented tells you just one of the many reasons families have had to struggle, many making significant sacrifices to find alternatives to ensure their children receive the education they deserve.
We don't have any more time to wait. Like, they need to address this immediately, like the house is on fire.
Some of this info now factoring into new policies that could mean layoffs and restructuring. Earlier this month, Superintendent Angelica Ramsey notified some employees their jobs could be affected. The district says it needs to reallocate resources from central administration to improve student learning.
Like, this needs to be a top priority. Our children are the future of Fort Worth, so it just needs to be taken to heart as such.
And tonight, district officials tell us that the policies have not been made public yet. However, they are expected to be released soon. In Fort Worth, Aaron Jones, CBS News, Texas.
Aaron, we appreciate
So before we get started, I definitely want to thank all of our partners who helped us and made this possible all the way through. So we want to thank Fort Worth Education Partnership, the Boys and Girls Club, the Office of the Mayor, Fort Worth Public Libraries, Fort Worth Parks and Recreation, HHCS, the Doc Bookshop, Mentor Ed, and Miss Pamela Reese. We also want to thank Miss Teresa Blake and Fortress. And lastly, but definitely not least, and most important, our children and our parents. Thank you all, because without y'all, we would not have been able to make this possible. So just want to give thanks to everybody that played a part in ensuring that this project and this campaign was a success. So before we get into why we're here, I definitely want to take some time to introduce you to our panelists. So we were fortunate enough to have certified teachers assess our students. And tonight on our panel, we have Miss Stacy Williams and we have Miss Christina Kane. Definitely want to thank both of you ladies for not only being a part of this huge success, but taking your time to be here tonight and speak to our group. So thank you both for that. We also have two of our parents that participated in our summer literacy project. We have Miss Maria Gonzalez and we have Miss Melanie Watson. Again, thank both of you ladies for being here and being a part of this panel tonight as well. So you will hear from our panel later on in the evening, but just wanted to at least let you guys know who you will be speaking with and who will be presenting with you. So as we all know, there's a number of reasons why we decided to attack the issue of literacy crisis, instead of just talking about it. So first, I'm going to present to you Layla from Fort Worth Education Partnership. She will share with you the data that played a strong impact as to why we chose to do our clinics and had a huge impact on our literacy campaign as a whole. So I will turn it over to Layla for the data.
Awesome. Thank you, Trinace. Thank you to Parent Shield for inviting us to be with you all here tonight. As Trinace said, my name is Layla Santian. I'm Vice President of Operations at Fort Worth Education Partnership. And we are happy to be here to share a little bit of how students are doing in reading in the city of Fort Worth. We just released last week, our annual report that looks at how students are doing by city council district. And Trinace asked me if I could be here today to share specifically in reading how students are doing. And so we'll dive into kind of the city as a whole. We'll look at some historical data to kind of orient us to how students are doing today, this year, compared to prior years. And then we'll look specifically at 3 city council districts. We'll dive in a little bit deeper to council districts 5, 8, and 11. So with that, we'll move to the city as a whole. So when we look at how students are doing in the city of Fort Worth, first kind of question is, who are we talking about? So we're talking about 160,000 students that are in public schools across the city of Fort Worth. When we look at where those students attend school, about 20,000 students are in public charter schools. Another 140,000 or so are in traditional ISDs. 66,000 of those being students in Fort Worth ISD, students that attend Fort Worth ISD schools that are geographically located inside the boundaries of the city of Fort Worth, and then about 74,000 students that are attending other public ISDs. So we know there are 12 public ISDs, traditional ISDs, that have schools that are located in the geographic boundaries of the city of Fort Worth. And when we look at how those students are doing specifically on reading, we're looking at 3rd through 8th graders in reading. In 2019, so this is kind of our pre-pandemic year, about 41% of students in the city of Fort Worth were reading on grade level. Fast forward, we know 2021, our first kind of post-pandemic, we saw a big hit in our reading rates, decrease to only 33% of students that were meeting grade level in reading. We saw a big jump as we looked to 2022, up to 46%, surpassed our pre-pandemic levels of students that were reading on grade level in the city. And then when we look at the most recent year, so this prior school year, across the schools that are in the city of Fort Worth, about 44% of students were reading on grade level. And so, I think we saw a bright spot last year in that we were finally, at our pre-pandemic levels, but we know that our pre-pandemic level alone is not the goal. Our goal is 100% of students that are reading on grade level. And unfortunately, we did see in this most recent year declines in our reading rates at the city level. We'll dive more deeply into the campus level, but that campus level can vary. There were a certain subset of schools that we saw increase their reading rates, and then unfortunately a greater number of schools saw declines in our percentage of students that were reading on grade level last year in comparison to the year prior. And so as we look at Council District 5, you can see the campuses that are geographically located in our Council District 5, represented by Councilwoman Bivens, and we have 9,600 students that are in public schools in District 5. Majority of those students are in schools in Fort Worth ISD, nearly 6,000 students, 1,200 that attend other ISD schools, and then just over 2,000 that are in public charter schools in District 5. As a whole, District 5 had 34% of students that were reading on grade level. It was a decline of 4% from the previous year, which was 38% reading on grade level. And then you can see at the campus level, kind of great variation from our 16% at West Hanley Elementary up to 71% at River Trails Elementary. So that is kind of the picture of how students in District 5 are doing in reading. We move to District 8, I believe we'll have here next. In District 8, is larger in terms of the number of students that are attending public schools in District 8. We have just over 19,000 students in public schools, nearly 9,000 of those in Fort Worth ISD, about half of that, just over 4,000 in other public ISDs, and then 6,000 students that attend public charter schools in District 8. And when we look at District 8 as a whole, again, we had another decline in the percentage of students that were meeting grade level standards in reading in the 3rd through 8th grades, with 32% of students in District 8 that were reading on grade level, which was another 4% decline from the previous year. The previous year was 36%. And again, you can see great variation here across the district. I see a question came up around what we think the recent decline in reading scores might be attributed to. Did assessment change, a new curriculum? Great question. So there was an assessment change in some ways. So STAR, as you may have heard, had a redesign. And so as part of that redesign, we know that there were new question types. And so you started to see cross-curricular passages. And then there was a limit on the number of points that could come from multiple choice questions. One kind of nuance in that to mention, TDA actually controls the way that the test is scaled to ensure that you can still compare apples to apples year over year, even across the redesign changes through the scaling of the score. So for example, in, I think it was the 3rd grade reading test this previous year, you had to have, 30, I think it was 37%. You can look up the exact raw score conversions on our report at Fort Worth ep.org. On the appendix, it does have those full conversions. But there were less points essentially this year that you had to receive on the assessment in terms of raw points available than last year. And that accounts for assessment changes, just like any other scaling system, to ensure that you're able to compare apples to apples data year over year. And so in terms of what we think might be attributing some of this, I think some ideas, some theories that I've heard, we have a lot of students that their most formative reading years were during the pandemic. And so we were starting to see those students. My own son was in kinder when the pandemic hit. That was or pre-K and then kinder, and is now a 3rd grader this coming year. Will be his first year testing. And so we're starting to see some students that, had very formative early reading year. So that is one idea or theory that I've heard. And then the other, a lot of school districts and schools are starting to do curriculum changes, different curriculum implementation. And at the campus level, as I said, there were some campuses that saw dramatic increases in reading and some that saw dramatic declines, more unfortunately on the decline. And so a question I think in my head to explore further is, does that maybe show us differences in the support systems at a campus level to implement new reading curriculums and that sort of thing? And so unfortunately have not dug into any of that yet to really establish causation there, but I think those are some of the theories that I've heard. I think we can move to hit Council District 11. When we look at Council District 11, 14,000 students in public schools. Majority of those students are in Fort Worth ISD schools that are geographically in Council District 11, with another 2,000 in public charter schools. We do not have any other students in other public ISDs in Council District 11. When we look at the aggregate reading percentage of students meeting grade level in reading in Council District 11, this year it was 28%, which represented a decline from last year, which was 35%. So a more significant decline in District 11 that we saw for schools located in District 11 and students that attend schools there. So I believe I am passing it back to you, Trinace, but thank you so much for letting me share some of the data that we're seeing coming out of last year's reading scores.
No, Layla, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here and presenting that data. And everybody that's on the call, as you heard, the data just makes a compelling case for why we took swift actions and what we decided to do. So as you can see, we have 64% of our children who are not on grade level. So that is why we took it upon ourselves to introduce Freedom July. So just so you know, so parents and caregivers, they're either given inaccurate information about the performance of their children, or they're given it is presented to them in a way that's confusing or that's full of jargon. And meanwhile, our children are the ones that continue to suffer and fall behind. So Parent Shield Fort Worth, we pride ourselves with meeting parents where they are. And this means that our staff spends much of their time knocking on doors, going to community centers, libraries, parks, just really wherever we can meet parents at to build those relationships and hear directly from parents in the most marginalized communities about the dreams and challenges that they have for their children. So after listening to dozens and dozens of parents in our community, we really just believe that an independent literacy assessment was the right thing to do. So we gleaned on the data that we collected as parents were unaware of the reading levels of their child. Most of them use report cards. So they were like, well, my child makes A's and B's on report card. However, we knew that A's and B's don't always equate to students knowing how to read. So we took it upon ourselves to actually take this campaign and educate not only parents, but also children by channeling the biblical verse that it really takes a village and there's truth. The truth will set you free. So Parent Shield, we decided to launch our literacy clinics in Tarrant County, and it was a success from beginning to end. So what we did was we brought parents in to our literacy clinics. Parents came in, they completed an intake assessment. In that intake assessment, we basically surveyed them and asked them a couple of questions, which will also be shown to you and administered throughout the report. But the parents came in, they took the assessments. The children came in too. The children were taken to an area where they were able to get a snack so that they could feel comfortable, because we definitely wanted, kids to come in and feel comfortable and be at ease and not feel nervous about taking these assessments. The child was paired up with the certified teacher during the checkup. Simultaneously, the parents were paired up with us, and they went through an action-based parent workshop. I do want to note that, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, as I stated, we administered the survey when parents came in, and 70% of the parents that took our survey reported that they actually rely on the report cards to gauge their children's academic progress. So they're trusting those report cards to know how their kids are doing. So we found locations, we found assessments. We had to find our testers or our certified teachers, and we did our outreach and our organizing to make this happen. So just to kind of talk you guys to give you a picture of why we decided to do this. So earlier this year, and I believe it was April, Parent Shield Fort Worth, we sat down with Mayor Maddie Parker to discuss the city's literacy challenges. During that conversation, she met with one of our parents, who you will hear from later on in this webinar, who broke down in tears. She had a third grader. Her third grader had been making A's and B's honor rolls for her whole elementary career, but mom knew that her baby was struggling reading. And she just broke down crying after she was looking at all these A and B honor roll certificates that she had for her baby that she knew was struggling. And she just didn't understand how was she getting A's and B's, but she knew that she had a problem, and it was serious. It was very serious. So we decided to produce a triage setting for parents and children, and we took it on the road. So during the month of July, we had 9 literacy clinics set up throughout the city of Fort Worth. They were very strategic into where we had them, why. We held them all in Council Districts 5 and Council Districts 8. And the reason was because those were the 2 lowest performing council districts based on last year's results. So we opened our literacy clinics up for grades kinder through grade 6. And we took a literacy clinic, a check approach, because we wanted it to be kind of like a checkup, just like when our babies go to the doctors, they go in to see their pediatrician and they get their checkup. They leave with a diagnosis and then sometimes a prescription to tell them what they need to do, or some type of care plan, what they need to do so that they could feel better and so that they can get well. Well, that was our same approach that we wanted to take, only with literacy. So we wanted to bring these babies in, give them this checkup, let our testers and our teachers provide parents, for one, with real-time information on where these children are. Because many times as parents, when our babies are assessed, we have to wait a long time to get the results, if we get the results. So these parents walked out as soon as they finished this assessment with these results in their hand. They left out with resources, knowing how they can be of assistance, what other resources are available in our community that can also be an assistance. And then most of all, like, how can us as Parent Shield be of assistance to them in this process of them trying to get a better understanding of their child's literacy level. So parents left with a toolkit, and like I said, it provided homework resources, just an abundance of information. It's on the left-hand side is an example of what some of our folders look like. It provided them with conversation starters for their children and their children's teachers. It gave them a parent-teacher planning guide that they can use throughout the year, just abundant resources so that they can get involved and take some actionable steps to close these gaps for our children. So to begin with, it was crucial to identify, like I said, the locations, because we wanted our locations to be in areas that were safe for our parents and our families. Thus why we chose the libraries, some of the parks and recreation centers. Just wanted to make sure that they were comfortable. And then again, it was very, very difficult for us to find an assessment to use, because many of the assessments, when we were reaching out to try to find the right assessments, many companies didn't want to provide us with an assessment because we were parents. It was very hard. We just parents that really want to know where our babies are reading. No, we're not affiliated with the school district, but we still need this information. So we finally landed on DIBELS, which was the assessment that we went with. So as I stated, the parents came in, the children got their literacy checkup. Parents went through a workshop where it was based on the science of reading. So the parents went through that workshop. They received the toolkits. All of the kids that went through our literacy clinic left with 2 to 3 school age appropriate books that they selected. We wanted to make sure that our baby selected their own books because we wanted it to be something that they would want to walk away reading. But all of the children that came through our assessment left with 2 to 3 books that they picked out. So we were able to provide well over 300 plus books to the children that came to our literacy assessment, which was another issue that parents were stating, was that they didn't have those resources. So really just finding all the ways to mend those gaps and close those gaps for our parents. So I do want to turn it over for just a moment to our 2 parents that are on the line. So Miss Melanie and Miss Maria, if you 2 ladies could come off, bring your cameras on for just a moment. Just want to talk to y'all for just a second. Thank you, Miss Mel. While we waiting on Miss Maria to come. Miss Mel, if you don't mind, Miss Maria, hello. Thank you too for being a part. You on mute still, Miss Maria. I just want to open it up for both of y'all. First of all, again, just saying thank you so much for just trusting us to get this information, knowing how important it was. But I just want you to share your experience with going through the literacy clinic. How were you able to use this information? And just share your story if you don't mind. And Miss Maria, I see you have your hand up. So I'm going to start with you first, if you don't mind.
Hello, my name is Maria Gonzalez, and I'm a parent of 3 child, and 1 in Forward ISD, and then 2 in IDEA. 2 of my youngest children struggle in reading.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I found this workshop called Parent Shield, where they inform me about how to be part of my kids.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Miss Maria. You got to come off mute, Miss Maria.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Like I said, 2 of my youngest children struggle in reading. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I found this workshop called Parent Shield that they informed me about how to get involved in my kids' education and how to find out how the school really work. I've been finding out a lot of stuff about how really the kids are not in the level that they're supposed to be. My son, he's in 6th grade and he's not reading in grade level. My daughter, she's in 3rd grade. She's not reading in grade level. And it's sad to know that they're passing our kids to higher levels, grades, without them not being prepared, without not having the knowledge that they're supposed to have. And always us as parents coming to the schools and being in conference with the teachers, and the teachers telling us something different, that it's not accurate to what we see our kids learning. Um, it's just sad. But now I know I'm learning still, but I'm in the step to know how to help my kids now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Miss Maria. I appreciate you very much for sharing. Miss Mel?
Yes, ma'am. I pretty much felt all the emotions that Miss Maria felt, because when it comes down to our kids, we get real emotional. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Parent Shield, because you opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I never really thought twice about. Being a mom of 10 kids, I always thought that, I pretty much had it under control. I've had 4 now that have graduated high school. I got one in his last year of high school. And I was like, okay, I'm moving them on through. I'm getting them on out. And I've never had any kids fail. And I've always been an active parent, like Miss Maria say, going up to the school, trying to keep up with what's going on, trying to be active in knowing how my kids are doing and going over homework with them and things. And I had a baby that started in COVID too. And that's my child, that Trinity that you talked about in the beginning. And I noticed that Trinity had some issues with reading, but when she went back to school, like you said, I got A and B certificates, so I'm front and center at the award ceremony. Yay, my baby, yay! And then by the 2nd grade, I'm doing homework with her, and I'm like, okay, this child can't read a word, but if I read it out loud to her, she understands it. She can write it down. She can tell me what it was. But when it came down to her reading, she couldn't read a sentence. And I would be fussing because I'm like, you're not trying. You're not paying attention. And then I realized, okay, it's more than that. It's more than that. So I asked them at the school, I said, can y'all have my baby tested for dyslexia? Because I noticed when she would write, her letters would be backwards. And I was like, okay. And they told me, no, she's doing good. She's doing well. All COVID babies come in and they're slow like this. And I'm like, okay then. And by the 3rd grade, I'm like, okay, no, you're not going to tell me that this is normal. My 1st grader was reading better than my 3rd grader. And I was like, nah, this is not making no sense. So after many calls and many reports being sent and many letters sent, they finally tested my baby and came back and said, well, Miss Watson, did you know she was severely dyslexic? I said, yeah, I kind of knew. I've been telling y'all for 2 years, but it hurt my heart. And I can finally tell this story without crying, because it hurt my heart that y'all done passed my baby, and me and my husband taking her out to get ice cream on award days because, hey, she got A's and B's. But our child couldn't even read. Our baby couldn't read. And so I thank and I praise God for organizations like Parent Shield that reaches out to parents and try to help us understand. Because like I said, I always considered myself a hands-on parent. Never did I think that, I was letting my baby slip by the wayside. And there's just, I can't even put into words how it feels to know that we're sending our children to get an education that they're not getting. They are not getting. And I thank God for the literacy clinics, because I was like, maybe we don't need to. Then I was like, no, I need to know. I need to know. And so even my 2nd grader that was tested, and they said, and thank y'all again for the snacks and making her feel good and welcome. And her teacher was awesome that worked with her, and she identified some things, and she gave us ways that we can work with her at home. We got a lot of resources, and she taught us a lot of tools that helped. But I say all this to say, we got our results that day, and she said, well, she's not really on the second grade level, but she's at in first grade level. And I was like, okay, I take that. But once I got her enrolled in school and they went to another school, because of course, after the fiasco with Trinity, I pulled them from that school. So they started a new school this year, and they sent home letters saying, okay, we're going to test the kids, and that's going to determine what class we put them in, whether it be an A class or a C class, A for being the higher ups and C for being the lower students that needed more help. And I got my letter home and it said, well, Amiri has to go in the C class because she tested reading on the kindergarten level. And I was able to go and say, no. That's not correct, because I've already had her tested and I know what level she's reading on. And so they said, well, maybe she was nervous, and we'll go back and retest her and, let her know to calm down and she's okay. And so after they retested her, they came back and they said, oh, she's reading on the second grade level. And I was like, yeah. So her being at that literacy clinic and having those teachers work with her and then work with me and tell me the things that we needed to work on and getting her where she needed to be, also let me know that when you go to these schools, if you don't really know, they will literally tell you anything. And so that prevented my child from being put in the lower class, essentially her not even learning what she needed to know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Miss Maya. I really appreciate you sharing that. That was very powerful. So I'm going to turn over real quick to our teachers. We have about 20 minutes left, but I want you to hear from our teachers real quick. And then I definitely want to share with you guys our key learnings as well as our recommendations. So Miss Christina and Miss Stacy, would you ladies please come on for just a moment? Hello. So I just have a question each for both of y'all. So I'll start with you, Ms. Christina, and I know you're not feeling too well today, so I will keep it short and simple. So just wanted to know, how was assessing children as part of the Freedom July different from what you do in your day-to-day role as a teacher?
First of all, and I'm sorry, but first of all, I just want to say what a blessing you are, and to bring us together as educators, as parents, looking at the raw data, and bringing us together as one. It takes a village for our children. As an educator, I'm a mom too. And so every child that we worked with this summer was a blessing to me. All the parents, Melanie's a blessing, Maria, all the parents touched me as well. And I can just tell you the difference is that and that immediate feedback. And, what I've been doing for 25 years, and my oldest is dyslexic. I'm a mom too. I have a struggling child. I've been through it. My child's been through it. I went to meetings and said, I'm the shoemaker making shoes and my own child doesn't have shoes. I know where you're coming from. And instead of Parent Shield brought us together instead of bringing us apart. Knowledge is power. And I always tell parents, your gut is more than a test. If your child's struggling, ask questions, and then for me, and I know I'm going to speak for my other fellow educators, Stacy, but we were empowered to be like, we have tools, we can teach you. And it was one session, and so imagine what we can do together in the future. So I feel blessed to be a part of this, and the fact that we could build the relationships and immediate feedback and get these kids help now. Early intervention's key, and it works. I can tell you, my oldest goes to the University of Arkansas. It can be done. It's not easy. There's a lot of work, but it takes all of us. I hope I answered that.
Yes, ma'am.
I just feel like we're a village.
Thank you. Definitely takes a village. Thank you for that, Miss Christina. Miss Stacy. Hey.
Our beautiful people.
Hey, Miss Stacy. I miss y'all too. So my question for you, Miss Stacy, is did you learn anything from this experience that encourages you to work differently with the children and the families that you serve?
I will say not necessarily learn something, but definitely a reminder. A reminder. I've been out of the school system for about a year and a half, and it's pushed me to want to get back in first off. So thank you. My passion is there. And being with the parents, being with the kids, the students was an amazing feeling. And it reminded me to be intentional, more intentional when I'm speaking to children and parents. We know reading is in everything. Everything we do has reading. It does not matter what fields we go in, it doesn't matter what subject, what we want to do, what job, what roles we want to have. Reading is there. And so just reminding and being intentional with having the conversations of um, kids love learning. And if somebody says anything different, they're lying. Point blank, period. Every kid that stepped inside of that clinic was excited about learning. And so that goes back also to the environment. And we've talked about that. What environment are we putting our kids in to get them excited about learning? But all in all, as a reminder, reading can be done anywhere. So, getting our kids excited about reading outside of the classroom walls, whether that's a book, whether that's a billboard, whether that's the ingredients on the back of the chip, flaming hot Cheeto package, getting them excited about reading and the gaming systems that they play, just pushing that because once they get excited about it, their worlds can take off. And so, thank you for that reminder. It sparked a passion of me wanting to get back with the students and the parents so we can spark that love for reading and learning again. So, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Stacy. Thank you, Miss Christina. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all so much for being a part of this. So I do want to share with you guys our key learnings. So our key learning number one is that the results that we calculated from our clinics was that they matched the district's results head on. So 64% of children that we tested a group of 104 children. Of that 104 children, 64% of them were not on grade level. This mirrored exactly the results of the districts. We also know that parents trust the system, but they're shocked once they find out the truth. So 2/3 of the parents that we surveyed, again, stated that they relied on report cards and or teacher conferences to determine how their child was reading. But if those report cards aren't giving us accurate information, and if those parents and teacher conferences that we're having, those teachers aren't giving us accurate information about our babies, it's not helping us. It's not doing any good. 3 is that the available assessment results for STAR and MAP are not being used by parents to gauge their child's literacy. So even though state, district, and schools provide these standardized assessments, only 33% of the parents that participated in our survey said that they relied on these to determine how their children are reading. And again, it could be very well so that those results are so intimidating and so full of jargon that they have no idea what they're reading anyway. Also, nearly 70% of the parents that walked into our clinic walked in thinking that their child was on grade level. So I'm going to stop right there for a minute and just say we had 70% of our parents walk into the clinic believing that their babies were on grade level, when in reality, 64% of them were not on grade level. Huge discrepancy. Also, our parents were split in half when we asked, have you ever thought your child was behind? As we mentioned earlier, most parents walked in thinking that their babies were on grade level or didn't know. But when we asked, have you ever thought your child was behind? It was split 50-50. So parents put their trust in the educational authorities and systems and teachers to teach our babies how to read. Number 6, many parents suspect that their child may have reading deficiencies or learning disabilities, but children are not assessed early enough. And our last 2 is that although in kinder through 3rd grade, students had much smaller gaps when it came to literacy, those gaps widened very, very much in 4th through 6th grade when no intervention occurs. So although it starts out small, if there's no direct intervention put in place, those gaps are just going to continue to increase and increase for our children. And lastly and finally, 100% of our parents that participated in our survey believes that every child has the right to learn to read, and it's possible. Like, we're not asking for something that's not possible. Reading is definitely a civil right. So what are our recommendations? What do we recommend? Data transparency is the first one. As a parent myself, we need strong, actionable data that includes results and reports that we are able to understand. If it's full of jargon, it's not going to do us any good. You're just wasting trees. So we need something that's easy for us to understand. Also, as even our tester said earlier in their presentation, early screening and detection is the key. We need a strong push to detect and screen learning disabilities as related to reading as early as kindergarten. That way we can get those babies help before they start taking the STAR test. Also, quicker implementation and higher standards. We need to train our teachers and to adapt to curriculum more swiftly and act more urgently to achieving the district's goals. They can be met. We can meet them together. But our kids are the only ones suffering when the goals are just continue to be lowered or our children are not meeting them year after year after year. Strong intervention. So access and usage of high quality, free, high dosage intervention by qualified specialists, that's going to be a game changer for our children. They need that. They need that. And then a collective action. As we've said multiple times on this webinar, it definitely takes a village. So we need Fort Worth to unite together to address this literacy crisis emergency. I mean, our children are our future, y'all. So it takes all of us. They're all our children. Until this can happen, we're going to continue to be in the same place we are. So we have to unite together around our babies. So that is all that I have. I do want to ask everybody that's on this call, if you could please share this report. We want to pass this information to as many people as we can. Like, we really put our hard work into getting this out here and to reaching these parents. And we want this information to not only be received, but to actually be used, to be implemented, because this is what's going to change our communities. So I do want to stop right there and open it up. We have a few minutes left. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer any that I can. So I do see a question in the chat for the parents. So Miss Mel and Miss Maria, do you think having your children tested with Parent Shield Fort Worth will change the way you work with your children's teachers in the future? If so, how?
Well, I'll answer that, and the answer is yes. Most definitely yes. Like I said, when the teacher came to me and told me, I actually talked to her on the Meet the Teacher night, and there were several other parents behind me, and they was like, "Oh, okay, she know what's going on." And I was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna sit up here and just tell me anything anymore. By me having the knowledge to know what's going on, I got the knowledge to approach you and question anything that you're telling me. So if you can go out and get your child assessed so you know for yourself, because at the end of the day, honestly, some teachers are there to do a job, and I can't knock them for that. but they're there to do a job. And finding out and getting to the root of why a child didn't feel good on this day and took a test and did bad is not one of their highest concerns. So therefore, even when she sent home papers, like they sent home papers for Trinity and was like, well, she made an F on this. And I asked her, I was like, okay, well, what was going on? Tell me what's going on so I know how to approach the teacher about the situation. I said, if it was something that wasn't taught to you, or if it was something that you didn't understand, you need to let me know so I know what to tell them. So yes, by knowledge is power. By having the knowledge, you have the power to address it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right on, Miss Mel. I agree with you. There's another question that says, what are the school trustees saying about the July workshops and this report? So some of the trustees, not all of them that I've spoken with, have been supportive of the workshops. We've had one of our trustees, I'm gonna just be honest, we've had a trustee for Fort Worth ISD show up at our workshop and actually support what we're doing. But we have not shared this report. So that will be our next step, is definitely to get into the districts, share our report with them, share our findings, and share our recommendations. And as always, we will keep you guys in the loop as to how that's going, if they're being receptive with this information, and just keep you guys in the loop. Any more questions? If not, I just want to say thank y'all very much again for taking the time to join us. This is something that's very, very passionate to not only myself, but also to my team and to the parents and the families that we serve every day. We're going to continue to do this work. Literacy is going to continue to be a passion for us. We're definitely about to get out here, like I said, and push this report and share our findings. So please, if you can help us with that, just by sharing this link and helping us get this information out there. We're trying to change some trajectories for our babies' lives. So if you're on this call, you definitely care about children and you care about education. So please share, please help us, and please become a literacy champion. With that being said, thank you very much. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and or Twitter or X. Y'all have a great night. Thank y'all.